The 1970s, a time of disco, questionable fashion air, and an American auto industry that was terrified. Why? Because the Germans and the Japanese were invading. The VW Beetle and the Toyota Corolla were small, cheap, and annoyingly reliable. Ford Motors was not having it. They needed a Beetle fighter. They needed it cheap and they needed it fast. Enter Lee Iacocca. Lee Iacocca, the legendary auto executive who decided he didn't need a calendar. Thus, the Ford Pinto was born. A car that would become famous, not for its fuel economy, but for its tendency to turn into a campfire if you looked at it wrong. Here is the first ingredient in this recipe for disaster: the schedule. Developing a car usually took about 43 months in the 70s. Ford did the Pinto in only 25. That is shockingly fast. The mandate from the top was simple, the rule of 2,000. The car had to weigh under 2,000 pounds and cost under $2,000. But when you rush engineering, you run into quirks. The Pinto had a unibody design, which was trendy, but to save space and to save money, the engineers placed the fuel tank behind the rear axle. Now, for non-car people, let me explain. Putting a fuel tank of explosive liquid between the rear bumper and the axle is like keeping your fireworks in the fireplace. If someone rear-ended you, the fuel tank would be shoved forward into the differential, which had some conveniently sharp bolts on it. Puncture plus spark plus gas equals bad. But here is where it really gets spicy. Ford actually knew about this. During secret crash tests, they rear-ended the Pinto prototypes, and nearly every time the fuel tank ruptured. So, how do you fix it? You install a plastic baffle or a rubber bladder. It weighed about a pound, and it cost a very expensive $11 per car. But remember the rule of 2,000? Every penny counted. Lee Iacocca really wanted that $2,000 price tag. So, Ford management had a decision to make. Install the $11 part and be safe, or save the money and cross their fingers. They decided to do some math, and this is why the Pinto story isn't just about bad engineering. It's about the most cold-hearted spreadsheet in history. It's known as the Pinto Memo. Ford's bean counters conducted a cost-benefit analysis. This is 100% real. On the left side, they wrote down the cost to fix the cars, and on the right side, the cost of, well, letting people burn. They estimated there would be 180 burn deaths and 180 serious burn injuries. And get this, they valued a human life at $200,000, and they valued a burn injury at $67,000. And after the math was done, they had come to a conclusion. It would cost them $137 million to fix the cars, but it would only cost them $49.5 million to let the people die and deal with the lawsuits. So, Ford looked at the numbers, shrugged and said, it's cheaper to let them burn. They sold the car, people bought the car, and predictably, people started getting rear-ended. The most famous case involved a young man named Richard Grimshaw. He was a passenger in a stored Pinto that got hit at 28 miles per hour. The car erupted. The driver died. Grimshaw survived, however, with horrific burns. He sued, but then the magazine called Mother Jones got a hold of Ford's internal documents. They published Pinto Madness. The public found out about the $11 fix and about the spreadsheet. The jury in the Grimshaw case was very pissed. They awarded Grimshaw $2.5 million in compensation damages, which is normal, but then they slapped Ford with $125 million in punitive damages. The message was clear. They were finding Ford for being evil. In 1978, Ford finally recalled 1.5 million Pintos. They installed the plastic shields, but by then, the Pinto was already a pop culture punchline. It was the car that starred in the movie Top Secret, where a Pinto gets gently tapped by a truck and explodes. The Pinto wasn't the only dangerous car on the road in the 70s, but it was the only car where the company actually did the math and realized it was a danger on the road, but still kept selling it.